All right, I think it's working. Hello, hello. So welcome to the live Socient Lab. We are waiting for our participant to log in. So if you join and you see this introduction message, just go ahead and try the chat. You can introduce yourself on the site. I'm going to try. So maybe we can put our name, our country, and the name of our social enterprise.
Fabulous. And I'll just say hello as well. I think we have a few people joining in, so it's great to have you. And we look forward to more people joining as we continue on.
All right, so the chat seems to be working. I see that we have Andrea and Cecile and Tona that already are in the room. During the first few minutes, we're gonna just let everyone to get in the room and maybe introduce themselves. I see that Tona says, hello, I'm Tona from Enactus in the United States. Great to have you, Tona.
Fabulous. I have a story about...
Daniele, you're also involved with Enactus in Canada, right?
Yes, so I'll tell that story in my intro, Tona. We'll talk more about that great group.
And we have Cecile from Tunisia. Hello, hello. Oh, and Tona is also live tweeting on her Twitter account.
Fabulous. I love that because Celyn and I can't multitask quite that much. So thank you, Tona, for doing that. That's great.
Don't hesitate, Tona, to put us your Twitter account in here, and we can also follow you later on.
Yeah.
All right, so I see that more and more people are joining. There is Vidya, Anichi, Tom, Ola Kunle. Don't hesitate, Mary as well, who just came. Don't hesitate to introduce yourself in the chat. Basically, for this live Socient lab, so we have a few questions that have been pre-submitted. And then we'll go on with the live chat. So you can ask your question in the chat, and both Daniele and I will address them with our insights and tips and tricks during this session. So we are planning to do the session in 1 hour. Let's try not to take too much of our time. But first of all, we wanted to introduce ourselves because some of you might not know Daniele and myself that much. So before listening to our insights, you might want to know why they are worth listening to. Daniele, you want to start?
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Celyn. And thanks everyone who's joined us so far and who will be watching the replay or joining us later. It's really fantastic to see people from all over the world. And I just want to say hi to Ola because I work with him quite a bit. So thanks for joining us from South Africa. And Tona and Andrea and everybody we see saying hello in the chat. So just to introduce myself, I'm the founder of thesedge.org, and the Sedge is a global online community where we work on providing tools, strategic support and development and training for people building social enterprise and sustainable projects. So the interesting thing about my story is that my love for social entrepreneurship really started back in university. And Tona, the reason I called you out with your Enactus involvement there is that was the club that I was involved with in university. But the interesting thing was, it was not named Enactus at the time. It was back when it was Students in Free Enterprise. And they didn't really identify as social entrepreneurship at that point, but that's exactly what it was. It was creating really entrepreneurial initiatives and projects that had an impact in our communities. So that was kind of the premise and what got me really jazzed up about this field. And I continued to learn more about it and continue growing that skill set. And have worked with Martin Burt, who's a wonderful professor. I took a program with him, and he's been a Skoll Fellow for several years and been working on amazing projects for the past 20 years. So as I'm sure many of you know, this idea of doing good while having a great impact and being sustainable is not anything new. But what's amazing is this kind of resurgence or this enthusiasm that's building all over the world. And people like yourselves who are joining us, and Celyn and myself, we're so passionate about making this and philosophy. So we can do well sustainably, financially sustainably, and have a great impact. So why not figure out how to do both? I think it's a really amazing challenge. I think it takes awesome people like yourselves to make it happen. And it's just a really exciting time. So I totally geek out about social enterprise, as I'm sure you will notice as the hour goes on. But I think it's just a wonderful and beautiful time to be working on change-making projects and, really stretching our creativity and our innovation to see what we can create and co-create with the people that we want to serve and improve lives of our communities, whether it's very local or international, to whatever reach really gets you excited. I think that's the cool part about it. So I'll pass it back to Celyn to share more about her background, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Great, thank you very much, Daniele. I'm also discovering things about you that I didn't know, so that's interesting. So I'm Celyn. I'm actually saying hi to you from Turkey. I live in Istanbul since a couple of years, and I'm the founder of Creators for Good, which is an online consulting providing individual accelerator programs for early stage entrepreneurs. So basically, I'm helping individuals to start and scale their sustainable social enterprises. And I do all that via internet. And so far, I helped social entrepreneurs in 6 different countries across Africa, Middle East, and Europe. But I'm not close to Canada and North America or any other part of the world. This is the beauty
of the internet, right? We're from all over the world today joining together. It's awesome.
So for my academic background, I actually studied first communication and then sustainability. I specialized in CSR at the time. I had heard about social entrepreneurship, but I had the feeling that big organizations could make more impact than small entrepreneurs. At least that was, my preconceived idea when I was a master's degree student. And then I started my career as a sales manager and director doing international macroeconomic research. So it was a great opportunity for me to work in different countries. And I tried to implement some CSR initiatives within my big corporation, within my big company. We had, for example, set up a partnership with One Laptop Per Child, which is an organization that some of you might notice. But I very soon realized that because it's not the core vision and mission of the company I was working for, then the CSR program could not reach their potential. And I met through my friend network some social entrepreneurs that were really implementing what my vision for sustainability was. And so I decided to say goodbye to my paycheck and set up my own company. So I became basically an entrepreneur to put my skills for a better use. And I'm sure that it's one of the reasons that leads many people to become social entrepreneurs as well. Mm-hmm. And instead of helping investors to maximize their already enormous amounts of profit, now I'm helping social entrepreneurs reach financial sustainability. And so that's basically for my background and why I'm doing what I do. In terms of the collaboration topic, which is our main topic for today's Q&A, I find it really, really interesting because I'm a solo entrepreneur. I'm running my company all by myself, although I never feel alone. Because from the very beginning, even if I chose not to set up a team from the beginning, I've always collaborated connected with peers or with academics, with associations, local ones, online or global ones. I'm collaborating with Daniele today, which is absolutely fantastic. Taking into account we have never met. And I really see like collaborations and partnerships as like a way to very effectively maximize or like reach another level for your business, whatever the field it is. So I'm very glad that you guys chose this topic, because we actually ran a little survey before choosing the topic. So yeah, I'm very excited for today, and I guess we can start with the questions.
Yeah, well, before we jump into the questions, I just want to touch a little bit about, because it's so perfect that we asked the communities from the Sedge and Creators for Good what was most relevant to you, and collaboration and partnerships was a clear front runner. And it's just so perfect because it's our first collaboration. And so I would just want to thank Celyn for reaching out to me initially, because one thing we're going to talk about in more detail throughout the questions is this idea of authentic communication, and I think the authenticity and kind of the vulnerability that we can share with each other, just, you know, person to person. There's no masks of we're this corporation or we're this nonprofit. I mean, those are part of your identity, but really connecting person to person, I think, is a really powerful way to build those partnerships and collaborations. And so Celyn actually reached out to me a little while ago, and
maybe we can explain like our own story of collaboration, because it can inspire the audience before we dig into the questions. That's a great idea. So yeah. Maybe I can tell how I reached out to you and then how you offered the collaboration.
Yeah, we'll just touch on it briefly, because I think it's interesting for our listeners to know, because this is a very meta example of exactly how these types of partnerships and collaborations can come about. And you're seeing it in its first version, really, because this is our first live collaboration. So I think it's a good learning opportunity as well.
Yeah, so basically I reached out to Daniele maybe 3 or 4 months after I launched my business. Basically what was happening is that I was really not having the social impact that I hoped for, and I was really struggling to compete with free initiatives. So I started wondering if it was even possible to be financially sustainable in my field. And I'm sure like many of you have felt this way at some point. Yeah. And I remember the Sedge.org from my early competitor research back when I was like working on my business model and my strategy. And I was really, really impressed, and I was really like admiring what Daniele had put together. And what I decided actually was to reach out, as Daniele just mentioned, in a very like authentic way, simply explaining my challenges and saying like asking if Daniele would be okay with sharing her experience with me. And it turned out to be a really, really lovely conversation amongst peers, because at the end of the day, we have the same mission. We have also the same kind of target audience. We just like do our things in different ways, which can actually complement each other. So the lesson here is there's no competition in the social enterprise world, because initiatives in your field that have the same intentions and values as yours can really become partners at some point along the way. So don't hesitate to reach out to them and you know, put your ego a bit on the side and say hi and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I think more often than not, you know, 99% of the time, people are very open to chatting and sharing experiences. And so I'm just so grateful you reached out, because then later when I was kind of brainstorming what might be really fun for the community, I thought, oh, it'd be so awesome to do it with Celyn and you know, have two perspectives, just providing that much more value for you guys as we share some thoughts around this topic that can be pretty, it's a pretty big topic. How do you navigate collaborations in an effective way? And so I guess it's just a lesson in don't be afraid to reach out. You never know what the outcome will be, and just be yourself, and it means so much. And I think, like Celyn said, when the goals are similar and you're serving the same audience, it really makes sense. So yeah, I think we'll jump into much more.
Yeah.
So should we start with our first question?
Yeah, let's start. So you guys can actually start asking your questions in the chat. I think we have a few minutes delay between our side of the world, even if we are on two sides of the world, and your side of the Hangout. So while we are answering the first questions that have been pre-submitted, please feel free to start asking your questions about building strong collaborations and partnerships.
Yes, excellent. So the first question that we have kind of ready to go is from Mary. I believe she is with us live, so that's fantastic. And she's wanting to know if participants, so Celyn and I will give our thoughts, but this is open to everybody on the call to kind of share their thoughts and ideas in the chat. But she's talking about when you're living in a country where you have a National Council for Social Enterprise, such as Canada, where I am, so that's cool. What impact does that make in terms of partnerships, collaboration, and leveraging the sector in terms of public policy formulation? So this is a really interesting question. So Mary lives and works in South Africa, and the local body closed its doors in late 2014, and some social entrepreneurs there are seeking to establish a new entity. And she's also doing some research around why some of these entities have folded and kind of navigating how to decide, should these social entrepreneurs take it upon themselves to create a new body, or what has the experience been in other countries? So that's where everybody on the call can share their thoughts as well, and then we'll share ours as well. And one thing Mary mentioned, in South Africa, there's a lack of a formal legal definition of what a social enterprise is. And that's also fairly common, I would say, in a lot of countries right now. So this is a common challenge we can all chat about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts or your viewpoint from your country to help Mary on this point. I find this question really interesting because it's not only about collaboration between social enterprises, but how social entrepreneurs can collaborate and communicate to other stakeholders, such as the legal improving the legal framework, for example. So first of all, Mary, it's very true. Formalized environment helps a lot, and for social entrepreneurs to, establish the right connections and voice their opinions to the decision leaders. A formalized entities is really useful. Now, as you mentioned, it's not the case anywhere, and unfortunately, it's not the case anymore in South Africa. But I would say don't wait for it to happen because it can take years. Those giant entities take years to build. And I'm sure you can do with what you already have. And you mentioned that you're already a group of social entrepreneurs seeking to find an alternative solution, basically. So my advice is, when there's no system, hack the system.
Like a true entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly, because don't wait for the environment to be optimal, create it. And we have the chance to live in a century with a magic tool, which is internet, that brings us all together today. So with internet and other technologies, you can really establish a network at no cost. Top of my mind is creating a selective, private or secret Facebook group with the possibility to reach out to any peer anytime without necessarily having the number or the email of such and such person to address the group. And maybe you can choose one social entrepreneur to moderate the group and change every month so that it stays democratic. And yeah, it can be participative. You can also, of course, use that community that is built online to throw live events since you are all in the same country. And yeah, social gathering to basically join forces, and maybe a lobby group can emerge, but it takes time. So start with what you already have and what you can with the technological possibilities. Daniele, you have thoughts as well?
Yeah, fabulous. So Mary, you mentioned the Canadian Council, which is relevant to myself being in Canada. And I think the interesting thing is that the direct, so yes, I agree, the formalized body, it can really help with regulation and in terms of pushing through some frameworks and, you know, some high level opportunities for discussion for social entrepreneurs in a country. But that said, the kind of direct impact of having that council in Canada is not, I don't feel so much of the direct impact. But when I look at the list of everybody who's on the council, they are the movers and shakers of social enterprise across Canada. So obviously, I mean, that makes sense. But the cool thing is that they are creating ripples and change and conversations all across the country as individuals or through their own projects or initiatives. Like we have the enterprising nonprofits across Canada, which has created a lot of opportunity for discussion amongst social entrepreneurs. And, you know, it has definitely helped, but it's the individuals that help create those opportunities for discussion. And so I think the formalized bodies are definitely helpful, but the informal is just as valuable. And you get a lot out of that. So yeah, I agree with Celyn. Just go for it. Just start having the conversations, and it doesn't need to be formal right away, but it will build momentum and it will grow into something that, you know, has more of that support structure and ecosystem for you.
Great.
So yeah,
I see that in the chat, some people gave their insights as well. I saw a message from India. So sorry, I'm lost in in the comments. I forgot the name of the person that commented, but it's great to see other perspectives as well.
Yes. Yeah. And I see you guys swapping emails. So that's awesome. You guys are connecting in the chat. I love it.
Great. Fantastic. Yeah. So we had another pre-submitted question that we liked very much. It comes from Sandrine. If it's the Celyn that I'm thinking about, she's from Turkey like me, but maybe it's another Sandrine. So she wrote as a question, for me, it's like a wedding. How do you keep the fun, flexible element while making sure you have an exit door if things goes bad? In other words, how to negotiate a worst case scenario when you are just starting a relationship? With a smiley at the end.
This is an awesome question, and I think it's a very relevant one. Thinking about the balance between keeping a collaboration really fun and flexible, as Sandrine pointed out, but also having that structure so that the relationship can stand on its own 2 feet and thrive, you know, with enough structure that it can move forward in a effective and purposeful way. And so I think that's the challenge, is that balance. And I think, again, it comes down to communication. So that's one thing I wanted to mention earlier, that if I could boil down the art of collaboration into one message, obviously it's still a big message, but it would definitely be, you know, open and authentic communication. That's the biggest challenge, I think. I think a lot of the issues that come from partnerships, it comes down to a lack of communication in the end. So when we're thinking of balancing this fun, flexible with the structure that you need to really move forward and accomplish your goals, I think it's important to talk about the expectations that you each have of each other, and to talk about your goals, and make sure, you know, just confirm that your goals are in alignment. Or if they're not in alignment, maybe you need a bigger discussion about that to kind of get on the same page, so to speak. So I think that's a really fantastic first step in terms of when you talk about how do you start out. But to kind of touch on the exit door or negotiating the worst case scenario, it's kind of funny because I definitely agree you need a contingency plan. You do need to have those conversations about where you're headed. And then as an individual or as your own organization, you need to think about kind of look out for your own goals as well and make sure it is a good fit. And when it starts to not be a good fit, you do need a plan to handle that for sure. But I kind of like the idea of negotiating a best case scenario. So instead of a worst case scenario, I'm an eternal optimist. So I kind of lean always towards best case scenarios. But I think it can also be really useful in that having that conversation about with the other person, you know, what do you see as the best case scenario of this partnership? And it can really help you get on the same page. So yeah, worst case scenario kind of makes me feel like you're expecting to fail. So for some people, you might want to think of it that way, but I prefer to flip it the other way around. But I think one thing you could do to kind of keep that balance and mitigate against the relationship going kind of the wrong direction from your needs is to build in some checkpoints or some milestones along the whole process. So at the very beginning, if you set the foundation of talking about your expectations and your goals, you can kind of agree to have these milestones along the process. And then you have a built-in structure to check in with your partners and say, is this working for you? Is it going the way you expected? How can we, you know, is there anything we need to do to improve how we're handling things as we go forward? And so I think that's, if you set it up early on, it's nothing adversarial or you're not pointing fingers along the way. So you can keep those emotions a little more neutral and you have that reason to check in and see how things are going. So that's my thoughts on that question.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree totally with you, and I actually want to add a few things because I really love Sandrine's parallel with the wedding. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna keep on with the wedding parallel. So first of all, there is no rush. No one proposes on the first date, right? So in a few words, if you take that to a potential collaboration, I think that you can start to hang out and start to work on a not too critical project together to validate that the partnership actually works. Because as Daniele mentioned earlier on, it's not just a question of entity, it's also question of people. They are just people you get along with, you can work very effectively with. And there are some people that just, maybe they are great, but they work in a completely different way and you just can't, work together. It just doesn't work. Like the outcome is not, what you were expecting from the partnership. So just try with a couple of more dates before you propose. And then when both of the parties decide to have a baby, that's also something that wedding is about. So start a project together. You can start formalizing things here. And just like a couple, you might want to tell the world about it. So in our social enterprise world, that would be to do maybe a joint PR campaign. That secures basically that both parties are okay to be public about it. And that also shows that they are equally committed to make it work. Because once you reach out to all the medias in your country saying that you're partnering with blah, it actually shows your commitment to do whatever you can to make this work. And you can also put things in writing. That's something that I advise, especially when you're creating something together that has like a lot of implication for both. So that's the making the baby part. And yeah, you can, write collectively together. You can write a contract. It doesn't need, to get in front of a lawyer or a mayor or whatsoever. But just put things in writing. Basically, you can write what are going to be both of your contributions in terms of time and in terms of resources. What is the time frame that you're going to work on? Just so that it's clear, it's in writing, everyone has the same expectation. You can also write what outcome you're willing to have from that partnership for both entities, because sometimes the outcome is not the same for each party. So better to align on it from the beginning and measure the expectation from the other party. And for the exit door, like in marriage, not every wedding needs a prenup. So, for very, very big deals, and maybe for the third or fourth collaboration, when, things get to a larger scale, and you're actually investing resources, financial resources into the common project, then yes, you can also include basically, exit obligations for both parties shall one decide to terminate for one reason or another. That can be a notice period, just so that you don't start being alone from one day to another. If compensation, if there was an investment in the beginning, you can openly talk about it with the partner in question. But again, like that's in a later stage in the collaboration, because imagine you're on a date and you start writing the prenup. That that will scare the man or the woman away. So to summarize, my key advice is like, don't be shy to formalize things, but not from the first date, because that's awkward. And yeah, both parties can really benefit from the clarity. So there is nothing to be shy about.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll just add to that, Eddie mentioned in the chat a little while ago the memorandum of understanding, which is kind of, I see that as a tool you can use that's not legal. I mean, it's not needing a lawyer. You're not doing a formal contract, but it does give you a structure to outline both parties' thoughts and expectations. So I think that's a great middle ground. So thanks for reminding us about that tool, Eddie. And I got to say, you guys are awesome. We have so much happening in the chat. I'm trying to keep up with it. But I see you guys connecting and sharing emails. This is fabulous. And there was an idea that came out of the chat is to start a Facebook group to keep everybody connected afterwards. So you guys are like on it. I love it. This is really fabulous. And some people in different countries who might meet up. So,
all right.
And we have a bunch of questions too.
Yeah, I've actually seen a question I really like from Eddie, who was asking, he was mentioning it's a very broad question, but I actually think it's a very good question. How do you measure the impact of your collaborations?
Very good question. And as you guys know, this can be so challenging on your own, let alone in a collaboration, right? So do you have you seem excited about the question. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so basically, how do you measure an impact, whether it's for a collaboration or like your social impact or whatsoever? It's always comes with defining some KPIs. What's KPI in English?
Key performance indicators. Yeah.
For those who haven't noticed, I'm French, and sometimes my English is playing with me. Anyway, so key performance indicators. Thank you, Daniele. Yes. Very good collaboration.
Yes, 2 minds is better than 1.
So yeah, to measure the success or the impact of a collaboration, I think it's actually very good to put some KPI early on. Again, not on the first date if we go back to the wedding parallel, but yeah, like if you start building a project and putting some KPIs can help you track the actual impact, but also align on the goals. I can again take the example of this first collaboration with Daniele. So when we decided to put together this live social lab, we established a strategy in terms of how we will promote it, what technical tools we would use, etc., what would be the content, the time frame, and so on. But we also decided on what were basically our target in terms of sign-up rate. So we are like, we would be happy to have blah amount of people joining the event, and we would like to have or to answer at least that amount of questions during the hour that we had together with the participants. And not that, you know, those numbers really matter, but it really motivated us to keep on promoting the event up until we had reached our target. So I think that's a good thing to always keep in mind. What are the KPIs and what are the tangible KPIs? Because like having a good, you know, relationship is not a key performance indicator because you have no number or nothing to assess if it was, to measure it.
It's kind of using the SMART goals, right? Which I know is kind of corny, but it's used a lot for a reason because it's helpful, right? Specific, measurable, time-bound.
SMART. I always get confused also what the last letters are about. I don't know, Daniele, if you have something to add about the measure of the impact of a collaboration.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great place to start. I'm not sure how many of you guys listening are familiar with using a theory of change framework to outline your impact or think through your strategy to achieve your impact. I think with these, you know, trying to move the needle on these very complex challenges, sometimes you need to think through the logical way that your daily actions and activities will actually result in the long-term kind of big vision impact of change that you see. And so that's a really great tool. It's a little more in-depth. So depending on the collaboration, it might not make sense to invest that much time to think it through. But in essence, I think it's really just starting with your end goal in mind, and then thinking through, you know, what are the short-term things that I can measure that I can assume will lead to that long-term goal. And you want to kind of think through your assumptions at each of those stages. And as a team, talk about how you're either, you know, feeling confident that you're addressing those assumptions in terms of, in a lot of cases, I'm sure you guys have examples of, you know, unintended consequences. So you have the best intentions and you're doing your daily activities and you're working towards those numbers, those measurable outputs that you decided on as a team. But, you know, sometimes there are outside factors that can influence how those outputs actually, you know, are they actually working towards the impact that you're trying to achieve? So if you're working on a bigger collaboration or something that's a little more complex, I think that's a good exercise to go through as a team. And, you know, again, it's outlining your goals and expectations together, but you're also outlining that how do we actually see our activities resulting in these measurable outputs, and will those actually achieve the impact that we're trying to have? Yeah,
and sometimes there are like unexpected consequences, happy consequences, like
that's
people
true.
in the chat offering to, you know, start a Facebook group altogether.
Yeah.
That's something we did
not expect that.
consider, but yeah, that's a fantastic idea. And again, like I think collaboration is also about like getting started, taking action, and see what happens. You know, like sometimes things go well, sometimes things go wrong, but things are happening, things are moving, and that's the essence of why we do what we do. So
yeah, for sure. I just saw Tom asked, where can we find examples of the theory of change? And so acumen.org has some really great free courses. And they also, if you search on YouTube, they have a video talking about the theory of change with an example of one of their investee companies, which is D-Light Designs. And I really like that video because it's about 20 minutes and it walks you through using theory of change in a specific example. So Tom, you can search for that. Oh yeah, awesome.
And it's a great one. I agree.
Yeah, cool. So we can also try and pull some links and resources to send you guys with the replay. Amy's saying Kellogg Foundation to create logic models theory of change. Okay, cool. So that's great. So what question should we go to next?
Yeah, I have seen a great question again. Maybe you want to address this one. It's from Amy, and she wrote, do you think that it will be much more difficult to lead a collaboration as an entrepreneur versus being part of a major agency or company? I see that many of them are led by large entities, and I want to do it as a startup enterprise.
Okay, so basically thinking through how might you go about building strong collaboration as a smaller startup rather than an agency, right? Okay, so that's a really great question because I think it does change the dynamic. Celyn has worked in a corporate environment. I have as well. I kind of skipped over that part of my history, but I worked in corporate banking for about 3 years as I was working on my social entrepreneurship on the side. And when you're in a large agency or an organization that has several people involved, you have kind of an extra layer of complexity as you're building your partnership, because you have the individual people. So we've talked about that a couple times, right? The collaborations, you're building relationships with people, but sometimes those people are working within the constraints and ideologies of a larger organization. Personally, I think it makes it more challenging. On one hand, I guess on the pro side to an agency collaborating is that they have more resources to pull from. So sometimes, you know, whether it's financial or time, or they just have more people they can bring into the project to help in terms of, you know, delegating certain tasks or researching certain elements, really whatever the grunt work is of the collaboration. So that's a bonus, but then I think things move a lot slower, right? The decision-making process will take longer because you might convince one person in the organization, maybe an entrepreneur who's, you know, trying to create some awesome change in their role within a larger organization. And even if you get them on board with the idea and they have the vision with you, they have the goals, you're all on the same page, it doesn't mean that their boss or their department or, you know, their whole agency is necessarily in agreement. So it takes more time. So I don't think you're at a disadvantage at all being a small social enterprise who wants to reach out and collaborate. I think you have kind of agility and speed on your side. You have less people, you know, whether it's yourself or a small group. You can get people excited about the vision and the goals a bit faster, and you can make those decisions faster. So I would use that to your advantage and definitely reach out to agencies if that's going to be a good partner for you in terms of, you know, leveraging their network, their resources, their contacts, because those are all really valuable in a collaboration. But you have a lot to bring to the table as well. So that's what I would say. Do you have anything to add to that, Celyn?
No, I definitely agree with you that yeah, bigger organizations are like bigger boats and they just move slower.
That's a good
like,
analogy. Yeah.
You're on your you're sailing and then you have this giant tugboat and yeah, basically the speed difference is about the same. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you say, and the only thing I would like to add is basically don't be shy and don't compare yourself with others as like I'm a small startup entrepreneur or I'm a solo entrepreneur or you know, I'm active in only like one local community. That actually
those are your secret power, your superpowers, right?
Yes.
Like as a person, as an entrepreneur, or as a small team, you have superpowers, and you need to be proud of those.
No, definitely. So there is no, like I've seen collaboration with, Coca-Cola and a tiny starting social enterprise in the middle of countryside in Uganda. And they were just like not shy to reach out to Coca-Cola. And yes, it took about 6 months to to finalize the partnership.
To move the boat.
Yes, to move the boat, exactly. But it really works. So yeah, don't be shy, and just go ahead and keep on asking. Just a small internal note between Daniele and I. Daniele, I'm using the Google Doc to select the questions, and so we can know like which one is coming up, because the chat is just like flowing so fast. I don't know if you see my updates. Sorry for this, collaboration collaboration background talk.
You're
Okay.
back. Yeah.
You froze as well. Did you hear what I just said?
No, if you could repeat it, I think maybe we all froze for a minute there.
Haha, okay. So I was saying that I am copy pasting the question into our Google Doc, and I was saying this like aside from the chat because it's an internal note for technical reasons, just because the chat is flowing so fast. So I've selected some questions. You can do so as well, so we know which one we're heading to. We have about 10 to 15 minutes left. So as you can see in the Google Doc, we have a question from Juliet that actually reminds me of another question we got pre-submitted by Nitya. So maybe we can answer these both together.
Yes, that sounds great. And this is definitely a common question that I think is good to touch on as we move forward in the Q&A. So I can read out the questions here. So we have basically, how do you find potential partners, right? So you might have an idea of a project that you would really love to get a good partner working with you on and have a good fit and move forward. But sometimes it's hard to find the right partner, or it can take a while, or it feels like you're not meeting the right people. So basically, where do you find organizations or people to partner with?
Yes, as you said, it's a great question, and we get that a lot. I'm sure you do that, get that with the search community as well, and I get that with my clients as well. Where are those people? You're surrounded by people like locally and on the internet. There are tons of Facebook groups and tons of people. But where do you find the right people? Where do you find those that you can partner with? And usually what I advise to my clients is that before thinking about who or where to find them, usually if you haven't identified anyone in particular, it's because you are not clear enough on the what. What are you looking for? People tend to be quite open. I'm open to anything because you feel like if you narrow down your search, it will be harder to get the attention of the right people. But it's actually the opposite that is happening. So yeah, before reaching out to anyone, you must be clear on what will be their role, what will be their benefits. So what do you have to offer? Why do you think getting involved and working on such partnership is good for them as well as for you? What type of organization do you really want to work with? What's your kind of an ideal client or an ideal partner? Is it a big organization, a small organization? Is it a brand new organization or one that has experience in the field? And once again, don't be shy to be clear about what you want, ideally. And then, maybe you want this and you will find something near to what your ideal is. When you have defined all your criteria, then you can start to basically look for examples of such organizations. So a small organization that has started a few years ago and that is involved in that area and that could or have the possibility to take upon such or such role within the partnership. And then, like we mentioned many times before, just reach out to them. Maybe it won't be the right timing for them. Maybe, they won't be interested. But at least reach out to them, pitch them the idea. And if they are not the right one, in, let's say, 90% of the case, they will advise you someone else in their network, because we all know like similar initiatives. So they can direct you to someone else. So reach out to 2 or 3 organizations that suit the profile, and then see what happens. Daniela, I'd like to have thoughts on that as well, if you want to add some things.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it with what you said. There's an analogy, or I guess a principle that I like to borrow from the field of permaculture. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with permaculture, but it's the idea of growing plants and fruits and vegetables and planting in a way that kind of mimics the natural way things grow. And nature has optimized for the best, output and yields in a natural forest. And so permaculture is taking some of those principles and using them to strategically design gardens and farms so that you have the best yields in terms of crops. So you might be thinking, Danielle, you're off the deep end. I don't know how this relates. But one of the principles that I really love is this idea of needs and yields. So in permaculture, it's actually a principle because you can plant 2 plants together side by side, and the yields of one, so maybe the leaves dropping or certain chemicals that it gives off, is exactly the needs of the other plant. So it's very symbiotic, and you have this balance. You have like these puzzle pieces connecting together, and the needs of one provides exactly what the yields of the other fill the needs. So long story short, it's the same thing as identifying what you're looking for and what their role might be. So with people in your community, you can kind of think of, okay, what are the byproducts of my work that somebody else might find really valuable? And in somebody else's work, what are their byproducts that would really help me out? So you're finding that mutual beneficial relationship. So that's one kind of high-level way that I think is useful to think about how, who you should be reaching out to and how to frame your offer. Eddie is saying collaborative sustainability. So you're framing your offer, you're going to that person, you're saying, look, I have this idea, it's going to be awesome for you, it's really awesome for me, what do you think? Let's try it out. And like Celyn said, sometimes it will be a great timing, good fit. Other times they'll give you another idea of who you could reach out to. And then just to add to that, sometimes it might not be the right time to collaborate. So if you're having trouble, thinking about who you might want to reach out to, or thinking, oh, I can't find the right partner to get this project going, maybe sometimes you just need to start taking action. And that can be kind of the momentum that you need to get things rolling and get some excitement, some momentum, and then the right partners will show up at the right time. So don't be discouraged if you don't always have to collaborate. Of course, it's wonderful, but at the right times, it's wonderful. So that's what I would say about that.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. We have about 7 minutes left. And I think we have some other questions here. Should we answer one more, Celyn?
Yes, definitely. So basically, we have received, I'm trying to group questions so we can address them all together. We have received questions from Andrea and from Juliet about basically where to find or how to meet other social entrepreneurs. And this reminds me, if I'm not wrong, I'm sorry, I'm going through my notes, but we received a pre-sent question about that as well, with someone in Chile.
Well, I was talking about
Aliénor. So yeah, let me read the question that we got from Andrea and Juliet, and I hope that Aliénor, who pre-submitted her question, will get her answer as well. So Andrea says, I'm working, well, trying to, in an environmental and sustainable agriculture here in Colombia, and I would like to meet other social entrepreneurs, and she gives her email. And then we have Juliet saying, where do global social entrepreneurs hang out? I am finding it hard to find like-minded folks to connect to. I'm in Zimbabwe and want to work with others who want to help women in business grow. But from a more strategic level, there are a lot of grassroots initiatives, but not much coordination in the middle, higher level of business. So I'm trying to get role models to inspire others to start out. And yeah, I found also Aliénor's question. I will read it out so that everyone has all the questions together, because I think our answer can be like global to this question, or where do you find people to hang out with, or like-minded social entrepreneurs to build collaborations or partnerships with.
And this is a good one for everybody listening to. If you have networks that you're a part of that are online, throw them in the chat, and then other people can connect in.
Yeah, so Aliénor was adding in terms of this topic, when starting a social business whose business model is based around partnership between your entity and a local business partner association, and whose competitive advantage relies on your partnership and subsequent offer, how do you efficiently and time-effective manner, overcome cultural issues, differences, and entrust a collaboration with local communities? For example, Europeans starting a hospitality business in Latin America. Maybe for this one, Daniele, we can share your experience when you went to Chile for a while, and how you connected with social entrepreneurs there.
For sure. And I think it was such a fun experience to be, landing in a new country. So for those that aren't familiar, I was working on the sedge in Chile for about 7 months, about a year and a half ago. And so it was essentially, coming from Canada and then implanting into the community and trying to grow those relationships from there. And I think one thing I found that was really helpful was to reach out to people and organizations who had, again, similar goals to what we had with the sedge, and who are serving the same group of people. So instead of trying to collaborate or partner or reach out right away to the group that you want to serve, reach out to your sideways to other organizations who are serving the same beneficiaries. And that way, they can help you build the trust with the communities that you want to work with. And so my experience in Chile was essentially we were introduced right away to one or two people or organizations who were working on building the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Santiago, the social innovation ecosystem. And it was a really exciting time. There was a lot of excitement, and people were connecting all over the place. So it was really fun. But what we found is that we connected with one person. We'd meet with them, chat about their experiences, what their goals were, what they're working on, very informal. And every single meeting, they would say, oh, I need to introduce you guys to so-and-so or this organization. And then we'd go meet with them. And then we'd have a great chat, make some connections and build that rapport and that trust. And they'd say, I got to introduce you to these people. And that happened over and over and over again. And I swear within like 2 or 3 months, we had met, the majority of the people working in social innovation in Santiago, which is a 6 million large city. I mean, the community must have been fairly well connected when we joined, and that's how we met people so quickly. But I think that's kind of an interesting approach when you're entering a new area or you're looking to kind of tap into an existing community. Just start with one and then say, hey, who else should I reach out to and connect with? And it will snowball, and before you know it, you're part of the community, and it's really fun.
Yeah, and I think people when there is an existing community and you're a newcomer, people use the idea of introducing you to someone else to also keep in touch with their network.
Right. That's
so
true.
like, don't be shy about like, oh my God, he's doing me like such a great favor or anything, because like it also helps them to, you know, keep up the relationship with those who he know, and people who introduce you mean that you kind of made a good impression. That's good. And then, as I mentioned before, because one of the questions about finding other social entrepreneurs is maybe in countries where there is not such like a good network already built in.
Right.
Again, hack the system, just create the network, and the network can start with just 5 people, and with technologies you can reach to people quite easily and at no cost, and maybe start something in your country or in your region. Nowadays, like, social entrepreneurship is quite spread out, and I'm sure that there is a good enough amount of people, or at least people interested in the field in each and every country. So you're not alone. And yeah, if you don't see an existing network, then make the first step and create it, and be the connector that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And I think just to wrap that up, and just a general note about being entrepreneurial and you know, trying to create change or shift the status quo in ways that haven't been done before. It can be overwhelming and it can feel daunting, but you don't have to go from 0 to 150 in one day. You know, everybody starts somewhere, and every project starts small, and that's just part of it. So don't feel like you need to, you know, jump to this level right away. Just one step at a time, one day at a time, one connection at a time, and eventually things start to build. And I think as entrepreneurs, we seem to expect a lot from ourselves and from the work that we're doing. I'm generalizing, but that's how I feel. And so I think it's important for us to remind ourselves that it's okay to start small and to build slowly, or, you know, things will evolve at the pace, and we don't need to worry about going faster than that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm also like quite demanding with myself and with others and with things, and since I became an entrepreneur, I really taught myself to like slow down, relax, and it's normal, and it's good the way it is, and I think sustainability is also about that, about like taking the time to grow things in a qualitative way more than in a quantitative way, and get everything so fast and then it collapses and no one understood why. So
Good
yeah.
point. It takes time to build those strong foundations, and that's true in your social enterprise. It's true in your partnerships, your relationships, and any initiatives that you're working on. So
Your wedding.
Well said. Your yes, wedding. Don't sign the contract on the first date. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that is it for today. I know we couldn't address 100% of the question that we got in the chat, but we'll definitely take note of all your questions. And both Daniele and I have a blog where we often publish content, so we'll address your issue in one way or another in the coming weeks. You'll actually be receiving both the Sedge.org and Creators for Good newsletter, so you can get our content right in your mailbox, and so you can be updated as well on a potential second live Socient Lab, because I think
We already have requests. We already have requests for monthly calls. So.
Yes. And so we took good note of your fantastic Facebook group idea. So both with Daniele, we're going to talk about the best way to make that happen. But I think both of us are excited about that. So I'm talking for both of us now, but I think that's something that we will consider.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I just want to thank everybody for joining us. You guys have been so awesome, participating and collaborating and sharing links and connecting. I just love it. I think it's great.
So our KPI about like building collaboration within the chat without us having to put things forward is cross-checked.
Yes, exactly. And I guess just one last thing, we'll send out the replay. I know one person joined late, about 40 minutes in, and asked for that. So you will get it. And then, yeah, we'll chat offline and update you guys on if there's any resources or links or other things that came out of today that we can share with the group.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you, everyone. Once again, it was lovely to interact with you all, and we'll be in touch very, very soon.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.